Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Kaga again, and we're going to be talking armored warfare. In particular, we're looking at the Chinese main battle tanks again. Yes, it's that time again. It's been a few weeks, it's time to move on in the series. And going on from last time when we looked at the Type 69-2, we're now going to go up to the Tier 5 and look at the Type 80-2. The Tier 5 Chinese main battle tank sitting in the... what is it? Yes, Zhongfen. That's the name. Zhongfen. In Zhongfen's armory line... armory line. Yeah, it's not a full armory tree just yet. It's just his armory line. He's got one line of main battle tanks that goes from Tier 3 to Tier 8 and one premium, and yeah, it's more of a line than it is a full tree just yet. So, let's go ahead, go over some basics of the vehicle, and after that we're going to touch on some of the, some things you might want to consider on the theory side, and how you might want to equip it. Then we're going to touch on what I would consider a sane... not really a sane, but a little bit more practical way to go about grinding this machine. Or specifically a grind path, because some things are a little more important than others, and you will notice the difference. So let's go ahead, get right on to it. The Type 80-2, like its predecessor, the Type 69-2, inherits this 105mm gun that you see on it, and you've probably gotten very used to it on the Type 69-2. It has nice handling characteristics. Its ammunition comes in a few flavors. The APF SDS, the high explosive anti-tank, and your basic high explosive plastic rounds. Now, basically the way this tank handles in all practical sense is exactly like what you'd come to expect from the Type 69-2, so we won't run too much into the statistics. The gun handling is more or less the same across every area of the tank. There is a minor difference that will come along towards the end of it, and that comes in the armor. Whereas the Type 69-2 excuse me, had only that flat steel on the hull of its on the hull of the tank. The Type 80-2 has this composite armor, and it is one of the upgrades that you can get on the vehicle. That makes it just a little bit more resilient all around. And that's about the only difference. That and you can get some of this. I'm not certain if you see these baskets here. Yeah, around the entirety of the turret. Yeah, I'm not certain if that's purely cosmetic or if that functions like cage protection, at least in some sense, against high explosive anti-tank. Or not that, but against ATGMs, you know, I'm not 100% sure on that. It'd be kind of interesting to know, but that's just something I just thought about, so silly me, need to look that up. So I'm going to go on, I'm going to talk a little bit about the retrofits that I liked on this, and similar to the Type 69-2, I fitted it with the gyroscopic stabilizers, the internal hull reinforcements, and to that I have added the chrome barrel lining to accentuate the strengths of this gun, being the rate of fire and trying to get as many rounds onto target as quickly as possible by spending less time aiming, because while the gun is great, the fire control systems are not as fast as they could be, so you really want to give them every edge you can possibly can. And just reviewing the basic skill build before going on to the upgrade path. Off-road driving, I'm going to accentuate this with Smooth Ride for better accuracy all around, basically when it's moving. On the gunner, I've gone with Shoot from the Hip for even less accuracy bloom all around. And then to this, I'm going to add Quick Draw. And also on the loader, I've decided to go with Rapid Fire. Again, that's to accentuate the strength of this vehicle, be having that 105mm gun rather than, say, the 125mm guns or anything like that. You want to just get that reload time, just push it through there. After that, I would actually recommend using the preparation skill, because you will find yourself wanting to switch to this high explosive anti-tank ammunition as fast as possible sometimes. And yes, you will notice that, like some of the other tier 5s that you will run into in the game, I have loaded more of this APF SDS ammunition than the high explosive anti-tank, and that's because at this stage in the game is when protection systems against shaped charge ammunition have started to render carrying more heat ammunition moot point. You just waste your time, really and truly. So that's enough about the general specifics. Let's talk about the upgrade path. And I'm going to say this is entirely with the benefit of experience. The first upgrade I would recommend going for on this tank, like, without a doubt, is heading for this fire control system upgrade, and that's because it reduces the aim time by 20%. That adds up when you start stacking all of the things that we've done to it. It starts making this thing capable of exceeding that natural rate of aimed fire from like a Patton type tank of the similar tier. Now, you don't necessarily have to equip the smoke grenades because, well, they're not super useful, but you know what? It's nice to have them. So you go ahead, get your smoke grenades, get your fire control system, and now you're sitting there going, well, what do we need after that? I would recommend getting this composite applique package, because before this point you have nothing but steel armor all around the hull, and this extra 1.3 armor modifier across the hull means there are more positions that you can take in the battles that the Type 80-2 will see, so it allows you to be more comfortable exposing just a little bit more of the hull. You don't have to be as picky about being in cover when you are trying to take shots, or reasonably covered. You can be slightly less covered with this package in place because, well, reasons. After that, I'd recommend getting the APF SDS ammunition. Just go 1, 2, and you'll see that when you look at... Hello? No. I'd love it if it would actually tell me what the stock ammunition could penetrate here, but it doesn't. So, actually, oh wait, there is a place that will tell me that. There is a place that will tell me that. And the reason I would recommend going for the APF SDS ammunition before anything else is 309 millimeters of penetration. Oh, no, that's 309 damage. Whoa. Well, late nights. 252 millimeters of penetration is... It's serviceable, but it's not comfortable. 271, it's not that much better, but in practice that means there are just more angles you can take the shot at, and that will help you grind out the vehicle more expeditiously. And now the next thing I will recommend is don't be tempted by the rest of the ammunition in here, okay? Don't be tempted by this. Don't be tempted by it. Get that mobility up. It's a small increase. That extra half second, it is a very small increase, but it means that you can get in and out of cover to take shots fast enough that you might be able to dodge that extra shot that could put you out of a match, or just avoid damage altogether. The next one I would recommend is getting that armor retrofit slot. It will just make life much more comfortable regardless of going with the hull reinforcement, the reinforced ammo rack, the reinforced engine housing, or you're going with reinforced wheels. It just makes life a lot more comfortable that way. The next one I would really recommend, you go straight up the heat and then grab this firepower retrofit slot. There's a lot of good things in here, and if you go with the chrome barrel lining, it makes life that much better, even still with all the extra bonuses that we've added to the aiming circle, the aiming bloom, and the aim time. We should have made ourselves a lot more comfortable, and now if you add chrome barrel lining, it gets even better. And then from there, it's very simple. You get your top high explosive plastic rounds, your cash bonuses, and then you cash out to your Type 85-2M. Okay. I'm going to just take a quick moment to pause here. I actually quite like this vehicle. I will admit that when I first got it, I absolutely dreaded this thing. But fully upgraded, it's a pretty likable tank. It is pretty likable. It's not like the 85-2M. It's not like the Leo or the Chieftain or even the Challenger 1, but the Challenger 1's overpowered as all hell, so everybody loves their Challengers. But you know what? It's not a bad tank, fully upgraded. It's a quirky one, but it's not bad. So anyway, let's go ahead, get ourselves into some gameplay. So here we are, we're in a relatively light Tier 6 PvE mission in Armored Warfare, and here's our Type 80-2. In front of us, we have the T-72A, a very powerful Tier 6 main battle tank, available in the Shishkin tree. We have a Leopard 1A5, a WZ-1224, the only premium available from Chongfen at Tier 5 as the Tier 5 Chinese main battle tank premium. It's good stuff there. We have a Chieftain Mark V that you may have glimpsed in the beginning. So let's go ahead and get this started. One of the things I love doing in these Chinese main battle tanks is being really aggressive. Like, how aggressive? You could make the argument that hyper-aggressive is the order of the day. And I can kind of get away with it in these vehicles because, you know, while they're not very heavily armored like their Soviet counterparts, or even their American counterparts in some places, some tiers, they give up that protection for better gun handling, some better characteristics with respect to the traverse of the vehicle over various types of terrain. So you can get away with just letting down the accelerator at times, going back and forth, and you can be that very reactive player if you really want to be. You can also play it very proactively. And right now, as you see me ducking in and out behind the wreck of this BMT type vehicle, that you can see how quickly the gun loads, how quickly we can acquire the target, fire the shot, and pull back. and then give it a few seconds, mix and repeat. And one of the things that I found actually relatively frustrating about like the Soviet main battle tanks is that you see that shot I took on that MBT-70 on the side of the turret, or the rear side of the turret where the ammo rack is. Well, it's true that 2 out of 3 shots from that T-72 I have sitting in my garage would have hit the target. I can feel confident that 5 out of 6 from this gun will hit that same target. And even I can fire it a little bit clutch with that and still feel somewhat confident that I can make that connect. And part of me just sitting there going, heat shell, why wasn't you loaded? Oh well, you still burned to death anyway there, little weasel. And now I'm sitting there going, oh crap, I've got a heat shell loaded. Yeah, the heat shells on this vehicle are not amazing. They're quite lackluster. You tend to use a lot more of the APF SDS in this vehicle all across the board. You can get away with carrying a fair bit of the heat ammunition and the HEP ammunition just because you're going to run into some thin-skinned vehicles like that Weasel we created the fire in earlier. And things like this Warrior, if you're careful aiming in the around its ERA when that is equipped on their vehicles, or tricky vehicles like the VFM Mark V. And just generally speaking, the APF SDS ammunition is just a much more surefire bet. Although you might still be wanting a little bit more penetration out of the gun in some instances, or a little more damage. But you do sacrifice a little bit to get that good gun handling on what is essentially T-72 hull anyway. So I don't know. I guess I can't really complain too much. But still, you know, we can always want more. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, it's one of those things I love about the HEP ammunition is that it can be deceptive. Sometimes it totally nukes those expeditionary tanks by killing the crew in one shot, and other times, piddly. That's not necessary. It doesn't always work that way, but it works that way a fair bit of the time. And I know that you can probably do this little base capture with a T-72 in terms of being able to get out here. In fact, you probably would be able to, just from the sake of, or not for the sake of, but by the virtue of it having a very high top speed. But being able to shift right after you take that, it's a little bit more difficult in the T-72. I find that the mobility and the agility of not just the Type 80-2, but all the Chinese main battle tanks are superior to that of their Soviet counterparts, which means that, yes, you can be pretty certain that the Soviet tank would beat you to the spot, but you can shift better after the fact. You know, I guess you can just pick which side of the engagement do you want the benefit on, before the cap or after the cap. I personally like having it after, especially, well, at least in PvE, just for the sake of being able to shift to the next engagement, though I can infer that this could also still be useful in PvP with the base captures, because while a T-72 would be able to get to the enemy cap faster than this Type 80-2, I am fairly certain that the Type 80-2 is more able to get out of dodge if they need to in a much faster way than, or in a, not in a faster way, but in a shorter amount of time than the equivalent T-72. Just on virtue of the way the tank moves over the ground. We'll just do some side scraping here, just in case we see something that could potentially one-shot us. We see a BMD. Okay, we'll just avoid any unnecessary damage, just do what we can. Oh boy. Wasn't quite gonna seal that one. And an ally picks it up. And you know, that's one of those things that I've noticed about this particular tank, is that it's very much a tank of compromise. Don't expect amazing performance in any one way, but don't expect anything truly lackluster about it. And you'll do fairly well with it. You'll be able to move through it fairly quickly, enjoy it while you're doing it, and be able to go ahead and kick some butt. Now, I know I'm not gonna sink myself into the hole of that's going to make it amazing when you understand that. No. It's just understanding the limitations of the vehicle. There will be some things that will be able to outplay you in various circumstances when their tanks have the higher advantage factor in particular sets of engagements. But that's also being the case that there's just a lot of situations that this particular tank, and actually all of the Chinese main battle tanks, can consider having some advantage in over a wide variety of opponents. And in that respect, they're not like the purpose-built solution to anything. They're the Swiss Army knives of armored warfare at the moment, and it makes them incredibly potent if you're willing to expand your awareness to like within 500 meters of your vehicle and start spotting opportunity and where you can make the better advantage over your enemies. Because you have, in this particular vehicle, you have the Western reliability, and I use Western to include like the Leopards, the Pattons, und so weiter, in terms of gun performance. And you can even go so far as you have the general hull, the entire vehicle has the hull mobility of like a Soviet main battle tank. It has that bouncy armor turret of a Soviet main battle tank. It's got that low profile, making it able to exploit terrain very usefully and getting into very unusual and usually destabilizing positions on the battlefield for the enemy. And finding that blend of it can truly allow one to have some outstanding results, both in PvE and in PvP. Both of them works very well, but you need to expand your tactical awareness to spot the positions that your vehicle will have the advantage ground over your opponents. And once you see that, you can start mopping the floor, kicking butt, taking names, whatever you want to call it. But in the end, you're just on the way towards the next highlight in the line, and that is the Type 85-2M, and I love that vehicle. I can't recommend it enough. There are very few tanks that come sparkling right out of the box and say, love me, quite the way this machine did. And I'm going to be looking forward to presenting that to you in 2 weeks. So I think that comes out to like the 29th, as I'm going to be spacing out the content for Armored Warfare a little bit. Because, there's only so many of these tanks. We're in no rush. It takes a while to get up to these vehicles anyway, so why not have some fun, enjoy some other lines while you're doing it, and not get frustrated in the process, and see what they're all about before you get there. So I look forward to seeing y'all in about 2 weeks for the next installment in this series. If you happen to like the video, please consider giving it a like down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting the old subscribe button down below. And I hope to see you around the channel for upcoming content. This week will include some nice ground realistic battles from War Thunder on our regularly scheduled War Thunder Wednesdays, to be followed up and closing off the week on both Thursday and Friday with some nice gameplay from World of Warships. So thank you for having bared with me for yet another one of those almost half-hour long videos. I hope it was entertaining for you, and I hope to see you next time. So, thank you, and I'd like to bid you a good day.